Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry to interrupt your regularly scheduled programming, but there is a special news bulletin brought to our attention tonight that the Weeblos are missing. That's right, the Weeblos are missing their first responder pin. Tonight we're going to be going to our special field investigator, Dave. Dave, are you there? Dave, can you hear me? Dave? Dave? Dave, are you okay? Are you okay? Dave, are you okay? Hey guys, Cubmaster Ben here coming at you this evening. We had a special request on Facebook from Mr. Kevin Hall for his Weeblos Den to complete their first responder badge. So Kevin, this is for you and your den. For any of you other Weeblos that need your first responder pin this year, this is for you guys. Here we go. Alright guys, so over here on my board you can see first responder requirements. We're going to complete everything but requirement number 5, as requirement number 5 makes you demonstrate the skills for your den leader. So firstly, we're going to talk about requirement number 1. What is first aid? First aid is a very easy concept. It is the aid or the care given to someone immediately upon injury, accident, or illness. Alright? The next thing we're going to talk about is choking. And you're like, Mr. Ben, why are we talking about choking? Because it does happen and you can be the one to help someone. Alright, so with choking, we do not call it the Heimlich maneuver, it is the abdominal thrust. If you have a victim who's choking, like our friend Dave here, Dave's choking, he might have his hands around his throat. Maybe his face is the wrong color and he can't breathe. You're going to walk up, get behind him. You're going to take one hand, make a fist, and point your thumb slightly pointed and put it just above their belly button. You're going to take your other hand, put it on top of that hand, and in sharp upward motions, you're going to push into his abdomen and push, attempting to get him to push that food out of his throat and spit it out. All right? Now let's say Dave, that doesn't work, and Dave becomes unconscious. At this point, guys, we've moved into hurried first aid, requirement number 2. Hurried first aid. What is hurried first aid? Hurried first aid is a life or death emergency. In Dave's case, Dave can't breathe. That's kind of serious, right? Now, this could be something that you saw happen and you know what happened, or maybe you didn't. The first thing you need to do when this becomes this situation where you don't know what happened, but the person is on the ground unconscious, is check and see if they can respond. Dave, are you okay? Are you okay? Dave doesn't respond to me. So at this point, I'm going to go, okay, the first thing I need to do, I need to call 911. So I'm going to get on my phone, or I'm going to run to the closest place with the phone, and I'm going to call 911 and tell them exactly what happened. Now what you need to do is stay with the person, if possible, while you're on the phone. But you also need to keep 911 on the phone, because they may give you important instructions that can help you keep this person alive, or at least keep them safe. Hopefully there's an adult around that you can have help, or a leader around that can help you as well. At this point, for our instance, Dave is choking. So we're going to talk about CPR for a minute. Well, what is CPR? CPR is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Really big words for a simple thing. All it is it's you helping the person make their heart beat. Okay, that's the basics of it. To perform CPR, you will take one hand and place it in the middle of their chest, kind of where this button is on my shirt. You're then going to take this hand, put it on top of it, curl your fingers underneath so it looks like this, and you're going to push down on the person's chest so that it goes about 2 inches down. This is just enough to make the heart beat. All right? So that's our hurried first aid. Now, let's say you come upon something that's a big issue. Let's say maybe you've come upon somebody and you don't know what's going on. They're unconscious on the ground. They haven't woken up. You've called 911, and 911's like, hey, how did they feel? Well, he's cold. He's kind of sweaty feeling. Okay, or your friend Dave here might be going into shock. You always should help treat for shock, guys, no matter what's going on. Shock is a very, very important factor that could save somebody's life. So there's 2 major things you can do as a scout to help treat for shock. The first one is if they don't have any leg injuries or hip or stomach injuries, just lift their feet a couple inches off the ground and prop them up. Could be on a boot, it could be on your backpack, whatever. The next thing you need to do, guys, is keep them warm. Now, obviously, not all of us carry a blanket in our backpack, and not all of us always have a blanket in our cars either. So, how else can we help keep people warm? Well, you can see here, I'm going to use my uniform shirt. So, I'm going to take my shirt off, and I'm just going to pack it on top of Dave like this. and that's going to act as a blanket to help keep Dave warm. All right? So, we've talked about choking, and we taught you how to help someone who's choking. We've talked about hurried first aid, and how do we help with hurried first aid. And remember, always check for responsiveness, always call 911, and see if they can breathe. The way you help check for breathing, boys and girls, take your ear, place it next to their face. You want to listen for breathing sounds, and at the same time, you want to use your eyes and look at their chest and their stomach and see if it's coming up and down. Okay? So, we're going to move Dave here off to the side. Thank you, Dave. All right, and we're going to talk about home first aid kits. Now, as a Cub Scout, and later on in life, you'll learn that emergencies and first aid kits are extremely handy. One of your 6 essentials as a scout is a first aid kit to be able to help in case something happens on a hike. So here, I have 2 different versions of a first aid kit. We have a first aid kit like you could buy at Walmart or wherever you buy it from, right? And it's got lots of cool stuff in there. There's all kinds of Band-Aids and different creams and gauze and all kinds of cool stuff. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. Here you will see the first aid kit that we use in our house for when we go out to go hiking and that kind of thing. And I'm using this one because it is very simple and it's very useful for those things, right? So one of the few things you might have in a first aid kit to help out is a one-use ice pack. This ice pack, all we do is squeeze it, shake it up, and it becomes cold. And you can use that if somebody twists an ankle or gets a bite from something, to put it on there to help it out. All right? The next thing we have in this pocket out here is gauze. All right? And you're like, Mr. Ben, why do you have gauze in the front pocket? That seems kind of silly. Well, we have gauze in the front pocket, boys and girls, because in case we turn around and somebody has gotten a cut, we can use that to help stop the bleeding. The next thing we have in here is Band-Aids. Band-Aids are always useful. You always have somebody who seems to cut themselves or scrape a knee or something, and a Band-Aid is extremely useful to cover it up. Then we have our alcohol pads. We use alcohol pads to help clean wounds that occur. All right? It can also help to take blood off of someone's fingers or dirt away from an injured area. Now we'll open it up. Now, obviously, this is the one, like I said, that we use to go hiking, so it has a little more stuff in it, but that's okay. So, gloves. We always have a couple pairs of gloves, a couple different sizes, so that whoever uses it can use it effectively. You'll see we have a tourniquet, which is helping in case somebody has large amounts of bleeding on an arm or a leg, all right? Scissors to help remove clothing. And then we get in here and we have a fast action fracture pack. Now what this does is this has this awesome thing in here. You'll see this red thing. It's made out of foam with a little bit of extra support in the middle of it and a wrap. And this is used in case someone you think may have, or you can obviously tell they've broken an arm or a leg. And this is to help kind of support it and keep it in place, all right? Next, you will see our bleeding pack. Sorry, it goes this way. So you'll see on the front here, we have a gauze sponge. It comes with a little glue, all right, to help it stick together. And then we have a wrap that'll wrap around it to help keep pressure on it, okay? And lastly, we have an ACE wrap, all right? And you're like, Mr. Ben, it seems kind of silly of all this cool guy stuff. Why do you have an ACE wrap? An ACE wrap is extremely helpful, guys. So this is a 6-inch ACE wrap. They have 4 inches, 2 inches, and even 1-inch wraps. And these can be used for all kinds of things, from everything from a hurt arm to hold it against your chest, to helping support somebody's ankle or knee that they may have injured, all right? Or even just to help wrap up a cut that's bleeding, all right? So let's talk about that for a minute here. You're looking at me and you're going, Mr. Ben, it seems kind of weird. Why do you keep referring to bleeding? Well, bleeding obviously is a bad thing, okay? So the reason we're bringing that up is because of the fact that if someone is bleeding, there are a couple different steps you can take as a Cub Scout in everyday life to help keep someone from bleeding, all right? So let's say you're at home, mom or dad cut their hand, okay, in the kitchen, and you're right there as a wee blow, and you could say, hey, mom and dad, I got you. we can take care of this. So you're gonna get mom and dad, and the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna say, take a piece of gauze, all right? And we're gonna take that piece of gauze and we're just gonna put it on there and just hold it down, all right? And you're gonna hold it down for about 30 seconds. And you're gonna see has the bleeding stopped or not, okay? If not, and it's still bleeding, you can get another piece of gauze. That's okay. You can use paper towels, old rags, anything that's clean to put against it for the time being. You're gonna raise it up. Now what this does is this elevates it up so the heart has to work a little harder to get blood up to the hand. And that's okay. Because what that does is that helps slow down the body from bleeding, okay? So we get it up here and it's still not working. You're like, man, it still isn't working. The next thing you need to do at this point, if it's that bad, is you need to start working for 911 or going to the hospital or getting another adult to help, okay? But in the meantime, you're gonna take this and we're gonna take our friend the ACE wrap. We're just gonna wrap it around the hand, covering the gauze completely, okay? And you can make it a little tight, that's okay. You're not gonna hurt the person by making it a little tight and helping stop the bleeding. All right? So, we've talked about our home first aid kits, we've talked about shock, choking, and hurried first aid. So next it says an emergency home plan. Now most of you might have talked about this if you stay home alone any with mom and dad or whoever you live with about what do I do in an emergency? Well, there's lots of things you can do in an emergency. In our house, if we're home and there's a fire, our kids know, hey, we're gonna meet at this neighbor's house, or we're gonna go to this place. You probably might have had a fire drill with your den where when you guys hold scouts, you've practiced where you need to meet up outside of the building if there's a fire. You also have to look at things like tornadoes. We live in Oklahoma and tornadoes can happen during any storm at any time. For us, we have an emergency shelter in our home that our boys know if they hear the tornado sirens, go directly to the tornado shelter. If we're in scouts, they know exactly where the tornado room is at our scout building. And when they're at school, they know which classrooms to go to that are safe or which hallways to go to during a tornado as well. Now there's all kinds of emergencies at home, and it may not just be a fire, it may not be a tornado, but that's the plan you need to work out with your family to know where to go, who to talk to, and how to get help. And remember, if there is an emergency, always call 911. Now, boys and girls, I'm doing this evening because my name is Benjamin Van Buren, and I am an EMT. I'm also a medic in the Army, so these kind of things are extremely important to me. So, boys and girls, I want you to listen to this information carefully. Make an emergency plan with your family, make an emergency plan with your den, and always know who to call. And if in doubt, if it's an emergency, call 911. So for me, our friend Dave, you guys have a great night, Weeblos, and we'll see you later.